Do black people have a victim mentality? All right, let's get into it.
Are we going to have this never-ending victim complex? At what point in time does it actually start becoming your fault for your own failures? Or are you going to sit there blaming some straight white man from the early 1900s for the rest of your life?
My God, you spoke what needed to be said. You're speaking facts. Amen, sister.
See, I forgot. Only the white man can be called out, not the black folk. Can never call them out. Always the victims, never the aggressor.
Accountability equals kryptonite. Black people have a victim mentality. I keep seeing that same phrase pop up over and over again whenever I'm on social media. And every time I see that, it already tells me a lot about the person that's saying it. Not because criticism isn't allowed, but because the people that are using that phrase usually aren't trying to understand anything. They're just repeating something that they heard and like the sound of.
And they racist. And they racist. All right, because if I've seen other people of the lighter pigmented sense, they understand. Period. You know, so
Just like the 1350 argument. But when you really listen to how people use that phrase, they never really explain what they mean by it. It's just, y'all are always playing the victim card. Just work harder. Y'all blame everything on racism. And it made me realize something. Most people that use that phrase don't know what accountability is, and they don't know what history is either. It's just something that they're tired of hearing us talk about. When they say that black people have a victim mentality, what they're really saying is, I don't want to hear you complain about systems anymore. They're not necessarily saying that the suffering we go through isn't real, even though some people will try to argue that point too. But what they are saying is that they're uncomfortable acknowledging it. It's uncomfortable for them to admit that some people start the race much further back. And it's especially uncomfortable for them to admit that some of the advantages that people enjoy were not earned. They were inherited. Because notice how that phrase gets used when we talk about things that are documented, like redlining, mass incarceration, police brutality, education gaps. The list goes on and on. Nobody calls it a victim mentality.
yes, the list does go on and on. As a matter of fact, we're about to go over this list. Before we do get into the list, you know, I grew up with this one guy, and he used to get SSI checks, right? But he ended up being a drug dealer, right? And he was with the other drug dealers, and some of the drug dealers was kind of fall off, lose money, stuff like that. But he could do that, but he would get a check every month. But he would talk crazy to the other drug dealers that didn't get that $600, $700 a month as a teenager, right? And he would talk down upon them, but he was having monthly income, and the other drug dealers didn't. But he was talking like he was all big and bad with the monthly income. And that's what these people that inherited these things, inherited this wealth, these homes, these businesses, this just private institutes. They inherited these things. Now they look down on people that didn't have that. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, let's just keep going.
To do it. When we do it, it's advocacy, it's awareness, it's fighting for your people. But when we do it, suddenly it's, oh, y'all are just making excuses. One of the many things that a lot of racist people don't understand is that acknowledging context is not the same as avoiding accountability. And a lot of times you'll notice they'll say that when it's convenient for them.
They're just becoming too much trouble. They bring these problems. We can't solve them. We can't hold them accountable. They blame us. They don't even like us. They blame the government. They blame history. They blame our ancestors.
Black people have always been held accountable. Historically, we've been held to a much higher standard. We've gotten more punishment, less grace, and much less room for error. So the idea that we're somehow allergic to accountability doesn't even line up with reality. Black people hold each other accountable all the time. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Black people constantly call out bad behavior through social media, barbershop talks, podcasts, and within our own families and communities. There are black folks that dedicate their lives to stopping violence and crime within our community. And all it takes is one quick search on any social media platform, and you can find videos of black people condemning and calling other black people out for bad behavior.
Excuse me, you're reading wrong. Show me your book. I'm going to take a picture of it. now it's going to scan it and
Two things can be true at the same time. We can hold ourselves accountable and we can also talk about the environment that we're operating in. But a lot of people want to act like history just stopped mattering at some random point. Like we all woke up one day on equal ground, equal opportunity, equal resources, and equal treatment. That's not reality. And pointing that out does not make you lack accountability. That makes you honest. Because make no mistake, if they had it their way, they would completely erase all of our history and prevent us from ever speaking about it again. And you
Well, that was the plan, and they have done that. You got to do your own research. You know.
know I'm telling the truth because we're seeing a lot of that now.
Reverend Brown is to have 2 artifacts he loaned to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture returned in just a few days. The return of his items comes after President Trump issued an executive order in late March targeting the Smithsonian institution, saying in part, in recent years, it's come under the influence of divisive race-centered ideology.
Another reason this gets thrown at us is because people only see black success stories. They'll see a few black people that made it and say, see, if they can do it, you can do it too. But what they're ignoring is survivorship bias. They're focusing on exceptions while pretending the system didn't filter out thousands of other black people along the way.
I learned today it is a name that does not sound white. We are to move it to the complete tasks. Either note your application as moved due to name standard.
And when you think about it,
that's crazy. And they have the nerve to say it's not systemic. It is. I mean, of course it is. But what we need to understand are people, you know, whether we believe we were here before them or not, which I do believe that. And even if some of us have been shipped over here, over time, this has become their land. All right. This has become their land, and you see how they treat us in their land. All right.
it makes sense. They love pointing to people like Michael B. Jordan, Denzel Washington, LeBron James. Those positions represent a tiny fraction of people. We're talking about the top 1%. And it's not even a black thing. If you look at any other race, 99% of y'all are not in those positions either. Realistically, everybody that's watching this video right now is not in that position, me included. So I genuinely do not understand how people use that as a real logical argument. It doesn't make any sense. And then there's the part that nobody likes to talk about. When we speak about injustice, it makes people question their own personal position. It forces them to ask whether the system that they benefit from is actually fair. And calling us victims is just a way to shut that conversation down before things get too uncomfortable for them. So the phrase victim mentality is not about our mindset. It's about protecting theirs. It's a defense mechanism, and it's a way for them to avoid accountability without actually having to say, I don't want to talk about this because it makes me uncomfortable. And that's why that phrase gets thrown around so loosely, because once you label somebody as having a victim mentality, then you don't have to deal with them anymore. Another thing that people don't understand is a lot of what they call victim mentality is really just survival awareness. And I already know what some of y'all are thinking. No, it's not the same survival awareness that y'all like to throw around to avoid coming in contact with black people. Ours actually makes sense. Y'all will say that y'all don't like being around us because our neighborhoods are dangerous or ghetto. But you're complaining about a problem that your people created.
Thank you. Before he gets into that, that's not even just neighborhoods in the United States of America. This is our darker pigmented places all across the world. Where you talk about Jamaica, where you talk about Haiti, and where you talk about any place where it's majority Dominican Republic. These places have been stripped, extracted of resources, held at gunpoint for large debts set up by these people. And when it comes to the people in America, with the redlining, pushing the white people out into something called the suburbs and putting the black people into these lower economic based areas with hard jobs, low education, all these things, bro. And then they got the nerve to say, no, this what happened 50 years ago doesn't matter, but it does matter. It still matters. Like, I'm going to go through a list of stuff in this next video, but it all matters. It all matters. Because if y'all didn't do it, we still have Rosewood. We still have Tulsa. Right? We would still have these things. We would have been inheriting things. Not even the reparations that should be owed to us, especially since y'all giving it to somebody else that don't even look like us. Anyway, I apologize. Let's keep going.
Do know that your government created the ghetto. I don't know if y'all ready for that conversation yet. But anyways, when you're aware of patterns, you move differently. But people who have never had to think like that will always misinterpret awareness as negativity. This is usually where the conversation always goes. Well, if black people just work harder, then we wouldn't have anything to talk about. But the funny thing is, we do work hard. We always have worked hard. In fact, the reason why we're here today is because of the hard work that we've had to put in. Now, are there some black people that are lazy as hell? Of course. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. And you purposely being a lazy individual is not the system's fault. So I'm not saying that either. But majority of us are not like that. And based on factual data, the stereotype of us being lazy is just not true. Because if it was up to them, we wouldn't even exist. And when I say that, I'm not being dramatic at all. There have been multiple attempts to completely erase our existence. But that's a conversation for another video.
Stop using race and gender as an excuse for why you're not successful. You're not successful because you're lazy, you don't have the right information, and you don't have the right strategy to be successful.
Stop blaming the system for you not changing. So as a clinical psychologist, I get...
For some reason, man, I just don't like lighter pigmented people trying to talk to me like this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Who is you to even say anything about this stuff when you know you okay with the system? You know what I mean? You okay with a system that oppress people, bro? Y'all keep saying when you could just advocate for change that's more equally in the system. And I'm not even saying that black people today can't, you know, do a lot better. But man, stop acting like all these hurdles haven't been put in place for us and that we was handicapped in the start of the race, right? Because let me tell y'all something, bro. I truly believe that crack epidemic that the government put in the 70s and 80s, I think that really messed up 50, 60 years, bro. I really truly believe that crack epidemic messed up the American people. Well, not the American people, the so-called African American people. And people say, oh, don't worry about that, this and that. Okay, well then y'all don't worry about y'all fentanyl problem that y'all got. Don't like that, huh? Thank you.
Every excuse in the book for people not changing. And one of the most common ones that I hear is that the system is unjust and that the forces of capitalism, racism, sexism, and systemic oppression are so great that it's not even worth trying.
I want to be very clear. I 100% believe in working hard and working smart. And the solution to this problem is not throwing your hands up and giving up. Because at the end of the day, there is still a lot that you can do to fight back against it. Of course, the system does have an effect on us, sometimes in ways that we can't even see. You gotta know how to play the game and how to win in life as a black man or a black woman. Is it gonna be more difficult for us than it would be for other races? Yes. But it is not impossible. Hard work was never the issue. The issue is how that hard work is recognized, rewarded, and blocked. You can be the hardest working person at your job, most qualified, the smartest, really the best overall employee. But if your boss already decided in his mind that you're not getting that raise because he's gonna slide it to Karen because he's sleeping with her on the low, then guess what? You're not getting that raise no matter how hard you work due to unfair circumstances that really have nothing to do with you at all. Your performance was great, but apparently hers was a little bit better. You can't tell people to run the same race while pretending like the track hasn't been altered in some way.
Yeah, that's the gist of it though, man. Not saying that there isn't darker pigmented people that should work harder, be more strategic and things like that, but don't act like these things weren't put in place, bro. And just like I said, bro, we were strong up into the 50s, 60s, even with the Tulsa, even with the Rosewood, right? Even a little bit in the 80s with the move. We had Martin Luther King, had Malcolm X, we had strong things that whatever. And the CIA and the government literally attack them or watch them or try to do things not to let the people unite, bro. Why are they doing that? Right? So when you keep doing that over and over again, yeah, some people might give up, bro. Because you see, every time you do build something, they're gonna burn it to the ground. They're gonna shoot the leader of it. Right? So stop acting like this stuff don't happen. And just like I said, I believe the crack epidemic is the worst thing that happened to us, and I think we still recovering from that. But anyway, man, tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We out.